So that right here now, we're done. We're done with the introduction, okay? Any questions about the introduction? No, or yes? So notice that in the overview sentence, I talked about that period between 1950 and 2000. But also I mentioned something about the future by 2030. Because you should in that intro. Now, what do you think I'm going to do next?
We start with the first year.
To specify?
Please, Michelin.
It will be to specify for the first paragraph?
We'll start with to specify, thank you. Now, Mabel said the first year. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in most cases, Mabel, yes. But if we had just 2 years, we say the first year and the second. Okay. But here we have we could write 3 paragraphs, but actually it would take longer. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to write 1 paragraph about the change between 1950 and 2007. And that's going to make it easier.
Okay.
And then 1 paragraph about 2030. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so to specify. Is it big enough?
No, yeah, no, it's great. That was great.
So between 1950 and 2007, strikingly. So I'm going to talk about which one jumped the most here. I'm going to talk about which one jumped the most. Okay, it looks like to me, well, we always had 42, this is where it looks like.
Asia, maybe?
Asia and Africa, yeah. But also, I think all of them increased, really. 42, that's 30 right here. Look, 30.
Dramatic, really striking.
Yeah. So, let's do that one in Asia. In Asia. This is percentages, okay?
Okay.
17 times 2, 34, no. Well, let's say had more than doubled in Asia and Africa. There we go. Had more than doubled.
Almost tripled.
15, 30, no. To Asia, 41, 37. To 41% and 37% respectively, while in no, let's put that there. Okay. Yeah, that's good for 1 sentence. To specify between 1950 and 2007, strikingly, that's our connecting there. The urban population in Asia and Africa had more than doubled. To 41% and 37% respectively, okay?
I think Europe have the double too.
No,
Because-
50 to 72.
It's 22 and Asia is 24 and Africa is 22.
No, we're
And the-
saying double. 15 times 2, 30.
Yeah.
17 times 2, 34. 51 times 2 is 100 and something.
Ah.
Mabel, do
What
you got it?
about what about the Latin America?
This is 34, the difference. in
I'm not
Latin
talking
America.
about the difference. We're talking about doubling. Double.
Michelin was saying Latin America is almost double too.
Latin America.
Okay. So it says more than double. We can't use
Okay.
it. Okay.
Yeah, we have Asia and Africa.
Mabel, did you get it or not?
No.
No. So what's 15 times 2?
2, 30.
Mabel, please. 15 times 2.
30,
17 times 2.
30, 37.
34. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 34. Yeah.
So 30 and it's 37, more than double. 34, so more than double. What's 51 times 2?
Oh yeah, you're right. I got it.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
So they didn't double there, okay?
Okay.
So, it's 51, 72, 42, 76. So here it looks like to have moderately increased, significantly increased. So we're going to say, meanwhile, in Latin America, Caribbean, being 'Mm. Incremented to 76%. So meanwhile, is our connector here. The population living in cities had significantly incremented more than significantly. Okay. So that's this one here. Okay, now we're going to say about here, Europe and North America. Okay. North America has the highest. Europe has the second. Oh, I should say 76 here. 72. And had reached second position let's say, and had taken over from Europe. So I'm just going to connect these two.
Which had 72.
Which had moderately jumped to 72%. So I found a connection there actually. So because you see here that it went from 42 to 76 and it went higher than Europe. Okay? So that was my connection here. So it went to second place. So I said here, and had taken over second position from Europe. What happened with Europe? Which I just connected here, had moderately jumped to 72%. Okay. Any questions about that one?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Mrs. Nichols is scratching her head in here.
No, I am.
Why? Why?
No,
What
I
is-
just
what?
like the way you put that together.
Because she doesn't understand IELTS Academic.
I understand.
It will come.
Thanks so much for the vote of confidence.
Oh, Mrs. Nichols, don't worry.
It's increased.
You can get to university soon.
Oh, really? Do I have to go, what can I go back and finish?
She's gonna get her doctorate.
Oh, no, I have to finish my master's first.
All right, so we have one more to talk about here, which is North America. You see, North America was the highest and it still was the highest. So I'm gonna say here, however, that can be my transition word. However. So North America had maintained the top spot. Looks like even though it had increased the least, 6, 9, 15, yeah. That's a good point. North America had maintained this top spot, even though or despite it had risen the least to 79%. Let's put from 64% to 79%. So, however, North America had maintained or kept the top spot, even though, just a connector here, compare more, it had risen the least. Okay. Any questions? That's that paragraph. You notice again, what I did here is I compared 1950 and 2007. Okay? The reason I compared that is because if I have to, if I only talk about 1950 and 2007, it would be too difficult. Okay? All right. So, or meaning it would be too long. Okay, do you have any questions? Oh, Mrs. Nichols had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if when you were talking about North America, if you could just say, for example, even though it had only risen 15%, because the other ones are a bit more than that, from 64%, or do you have to say the range between the lowest one and the
There are many ways to say it. You can say that one.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. There's many ways to express the same idea. It's not only this way.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. The important thing is that you just get that comparison.
Mhm.
Okay, so now
Talk about projection.
so I talked about the change between 1950 and 2007. Now, what do we need to talk about? Do you think? What do you think?
Biggest change?
Right. So when I talk about 2030, right? We need to talk about the biggest change. Mhm. So, how can I start?
Comparatively?
Mhm. Looking ahead to 2030, remarkably, yes, remarkably. We should concentrate on the biggest change. Where do you think is the biggest change here?
I have to compare 2007 and 2030? Oh, 3.
Well, we already compared to 2007 because we already compared to 1950. So the comparison should be to 2030. So here it's what? 7, 8.
I think it's
It's,
Africa.
Asia and Africa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the one that's increasing the most. So we need to say that here. Mhm. Okay. So comparatively, looking ahead to 2030, remarkably, the urban population the urban population of Africa and Asia is anticipated to continue to surge and reach its highest levels, with Africa 51, 54, with 51% and 54% accordingly. Okay. So the urban population of Africa and Asia, okay, is anticipated to continue to surge. So notice again, here we use our passive for future. And reach its highest levels. With 51% and 54% accordingly. Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
No. Okay. So now we should speak about
North America.
No, you said no.
so 6 here looks like 8.
Let's double between 1950 and.
We're not talking about 1950 anymore, remember.
There is
So it looks like these ones are gonna continue to marginally rise. Yeah.
they're right the same there.
So notably, let's put notably. It's a connector. The metropolitan populations. Yeah. Of Europe, Latin America, and Caribbean, and North America are predicted to marginally increment to 78, 84, and 87. Consecutively, let's just put here, however, the latter is projected, estimated to retain top spot. So as we can see the ladder, right, which is North America in this case. So the metropolitan populations of Europe, Latin America, and Caribbean, and North America are predicted to marginally increment to 78, 74, and 87% consecutively. Okay, so then I'm just making this connection here, and I don't want to put comma, comma, however, comma. So it doesn't sound like a good connector, so I'm using this semicolon to connect better. Or directly. Remember we said the latter is also a connector from the previous sentence. Which one is the latter, Michelin?
There must be, I think, North America in this sentence.
Good, good, good. Is estimated to retain, keep. Okay, good. Any questions about this one? A little bit academic. We already studied the former and the latter. Yes.
Are we going to compare it to the world?
What a good question.
I'm so glad you think so.
Our new student, Mrs. Nichols, she's asking so many questions
She has
today.
great moments.
Okay. So, very good question, actually. Why haven't I compared anything to the world? Now, we shouldn't say that the world is higher than
Alert
Africa.
from Google Chrome.
Sorry, everybody. Wait 1 second here. Google Chrome for some reason. Okay, so we shouldn't be comparing to the world directly because, would you like a piece of paper?
Yes, right. I have a feeling it's just
What?
I have a feeling that's just a percentage.
I think there's some in there. I'll use the back of this one.
Oh, okay. Just keep talking. Okay.
So we haven't been comparing to the world because if we say Africa is less than the world, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Because Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and North America are included in the world. You could say in each paragraph, you could say something like the population had increased to 49, the global, and then 60. But the reason I haven't said anything actually is because I'm going to say that in my summary sentence. Okay? Summary sentence. So I'm going to mention that in the end. So I was thinking about that. I need to say it here. Okay? Any other questions? So to sum up from this graph, you can ascertain that the global urban population has been drastically increasing up to now. Now I'm saying now because in this figure we can assume because it increased in 2007 and it's continuing to increase. So I'm saying up to now. And is forecasted to rise further by 2030. Yes?
Can we say it's a phenomena?
No.
No, can I say it's a phenomena?
Well, it's not a phenomena
Okay, why not?
because we know. A phenomena is something we don't know.
But in terms of its increase, it's becoming.
No, it's not a phenomenon.
Oh, okay.
No. A phenomenon is something that we're not really sure why it's happening. But in this case, the global population has been drastically rising or increasing right here and is forecasted to rise further we'll talk after, and is forecasted to rise further by 2030, okay? This one here. And then I'm gonna say particularly due to rises where? Particularly due to rises where? Where?
What did you say? Due to, but we didn't finish.
Asia, maybe.
Particularly in in Latin America.
Africa and Asia. Or Latin America too.
Yeah, Latin America's double. 1950.
Okay, so particularly due to rises in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and Caribbean. Okay. Why would you say it's a phenomena? It's not. Well, okay.
Well, it's because it's kind of like we tend to think of things as being gradual social changes without having uncertain parts to them as being phenomena. So that's why I think it's phenomena, because we have no explanation.
Isn't it often? Oh, we don't have an explanation. See, there you go. So there you said something key.
Yeah.
She said we don't have an explanation for this, but we do.
Do it.
People are moving from the country to the cities
Mhm.
because we've changed from agricultural societies to more civilized societies. We're not dependent on that. And the cities are getting larger and larger and becoming more convenient. So it's not a phenomenon, we know.
Okay, but just from that information that's presented, it kind of looks like it could be a phenomenon.
Oh, so you're saying from this graph.
Yeah, exactly. And so your conclusion could be it's a phenomenon.
All right.
Could be.
I wouldn't want to say it's a phenomena because we don't know. All right, so any other questions?
Can you summarize, please,
Summarize.
with the graphic beside, please?
We did just summarize, it's right there.
Huh?
So we're gonna reread. Yes, we're reading again. Yes, okay. So again, this was a bar graph. We know bar graphs really well, but
Yes.
This one particularly was a bar graph talking about the future.
Yes.
So we had 3 years. All right, so go ahead, Michelin, you can start.
The bar graph provides statistical information regarding the proportion of the global population residing in urban area in relation to 5 regions in 1950 and 2007, as well as projection for 2030.
Good. So there you go. That's what we're talking about, projections. Okay, Mabel?
An overview of the data indicates that the urban population had increased between 1950 and 2007, and it is expected to rise further by 2030.
Good. So there you can see that over here it increased and it's expected to rise. Okay?
Yeah.
We should say the overview sentence is about that.
Mhm.
What about the next paragraph? So now we're going to get to the first paragraph here. And in this first paragraph, we're going to talk about, I remember, because we have 2 years here, we're going to talk about those 2 years. The comparison between those two. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if we talk about just 1950 and if we talk about just 2007, it'll be too long and it'll take more time. So, go ahead. We'll talk about that comparison. Okay, Michelin?
To specify, between 1950 and 2007, strikingly, the urban population in Asia and Africa had more than doubled to 41% and 37% respectively.
Okay, so we started with that doubling. Next, Mabel?
Meanwhile, in Latin America and the Caribbean, the population living in cities had significantly incremented to 76% and had taken over second position from Europe, which had moderately jumped to 72%.
Okay, and then lastly here, we just need to look at North America. Michelin?
However, North America had maintained the top spot, even though it has risen to the list from 64% to 79%.
Good. So now that was the first step that we were writing, comparing between 1950 and 2007. Now we should mention the second step, which is right about 2030. And talk about the changes that happened there. And because the population of Africa and Asia is expected to rise the most, that's what we talked about at first, okay? Go ahead, Mabel.
Comparatively, looking ahead to 2030, remarkably, the urban population of Africa and Asia is anticipated to continue to surge and reach its highest level with 51% and 54% accordingly.
Good. Now we're going to go to talking about the other ones. Go ahead.
Notably, the metropolitan population of Europe, Latin America and Caribbean, and North America are predicted to marginally increment to 78%, 74%, and 84% consecutively. However, the latter is estimated to retain the top spot.
Okay, so now I grouped them all into one because it's very close. You see the rise, it's very similar. So there's no need to compare them individually. And if we group them, we can write a shorter sentence faster. But we should say that the latter, which is North America, is still at the top. Okay, Mabel, summarize.
To sum up, from this graph, we can ascertain that the global urban population has been drastically increasing up to now and is forecasted to rise further by 2030, particularly due to rises in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and Caribbean.
Let me change this rise here to increment. Just, it's not wrong, but I just don't like two rises and rises the same. Okay. Any final questions about that? Again, we need to really focus here on the future. And actually, it's a good practice on page 66 of your grammar guides. What tenses to use? Grammar tenses for periods in the past, just past, and the future. Okay, also for homework in relation to this, in your foundations book, page 11. Well, look at that. Can you read it, please, Micheline?
The chart below gives information about Samland's main export in 2005, 2015, and future projection for 2025.
Okay, good. So, yeah, this is just an example. It says some land. I guess it connects to our unit about space because
It could be in space.
some land in Mars.
International tourists.
Okay, so we're thinking
Interglacial tourism.
we're thinking about the future here. I don't know if international tourism is going to be that high though.
No, but it could be interglacial.
So again, everyone, it's exactly the same thing. We just need to compare here, like we did. So you should compare one paragraph about 2005, 2015, and another paragraph about 2025.
Is it the rule all the time?
Is that the same rule?
I wouldn't say it's a rule as more like it's logical. I don't think it's something like it's a rule. Again, I would say that probably it's the easier way to do it for this particular exam. Okay, Micheline? Because I wrote over here in our example, what is the total words? Ooh, it's long, 294. 294 words is definitely longer than is the minimum, because the minimum is 150. Remember, there's a minimum 150, but there's no maximum. Personally, I could probably write 1,000 words in 20 minutes. 1,000. So this 294 here, for me, it's minimum. Now, for a level 5 or 6 student, 150 words could be good. Now, for level 7, I think 250 is normal. So I think this 294, even though I think this essay is basic, I don't feel it's academic enough. I feel it's basic for level 7. Maybe it's longer, which maybe gives it level 8. Okay? But the ideas are definitely not 8 or 9. I would say 7-ish. Okay? So it's just not about the rule, Michelin, as it is about what is the best way to write for the exam. Now, if you want to do it as a practice, like an actual academic analysis, you should be able to write 5,000 words on this one. So in that case, you need to analyze very carefully 2005. You need to analyze 2015 very carefully. You need to compare 2015 and 2005. You need to analyze 2025. Then you need to compare 2025 to 2005 and 2015, and then talk about all that in a correlation way. And that could take you 5,000 words. But let's remember, IELTS Academic Essay Test 1, you only need to write 150 words. And also you need to write that in 20 minutes. So for that case, I suggest
Disorganization.
Organize by comparing 2005 and 2015, and then 2025. Which is what we just did. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So, all right, then for tomorrow,